And now, the survival show that once survived a bad chili bowl haircut in the 70s. In this episode, Amanda from Farm Field and Firearms drops by. We discuss her adventures at Appleseed and learning to shoot out to 3,000 yards. Howdy and welcome to the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 290. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the Rabbit Hole. Safe and sound. A quick note before we dive in, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and ring that bell if you're into that sort of thing. Now, on to today's guest. Amanda, welcome to In the Rabbit Hole.
Thanks for having me.
This is fun because the audience gets to meet you, but you and I have known each other for a little while now. You're a member of the Armada, and you've been on your own adventures and journey lately, and that's culminating into your own show, which we'll come to in a bit. But first, this is going to be fun because we're going to talk about Appleseed, and that's something that I haven't really gotten to speak about in a while. And I think what was interesting about your journey is that in a lot of ways you had the same experience I had, which is I didn't grow up with this stuff.
Right.
And trying to find somebody to teach you all of these different skills is very difficult because most of the time it's knowledge that's passed down. It's traditions, as you and I were talking about a little while ago.
Right.
And it's not pick up a textbook and learn it, or it's just, you're like, where do I, like I ran into the issue is we were joking around a little while ago where sure, I could take all these different tactical classes all day long, but if I just wanted to go hunt, it's like, well, I'm not going to suit up in level 3 body armor and go all tactical on a deer. Like that's ridiculous. Mildly entertaining.
Might be fun, but
might be fun, but a little ridiculous. Friends might look at you a little weird. And then you get into the issue of finding traditional marksmanship.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yours was interesting because you've gone into the world of snipers.
Starting to.
And we were all as a group going back and forth in the chat. And I remember it was like, you might check out Appleseed. It's not exactly what you're doing, but I think it might help. So for those not familiar, Appleseed is focused on traditional rifle marksmanship out 100 yards to 400 yards. Or is it 600? It's been a long time since I've been in.
Right.
And it's mostly, they encourage iron sights and stuff like that. So you really learn the fundamentals. And that was something I had the hardest time finding in the beginning.
Sure.
That was the joke. Like everybody wanted to teach you how to, ninja up and go after a deer in the woods, I guess. But so what you had started off with the long range, did it feel like when we first started talking about it, did it feel like, oh, this is going to be like going from high school to junior high, like a step back, or did you kind of know what to expect? Because we didn't really tell you much. We just said, go do this.
You did. And I was like, what took you so long? Because number one, it's super affordable. And I think it's so accessible for everybody, but it's really, I don't know. I didn't know about it. So it's lesser known, but amazing. No, it didn't feel like going backwards for me because I was super intrigued by classic marksmanship and just the raw skill, having the actual skill.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know what to expect, but when I got there, I was very pleasantly surprised. So, yeah.
What did you expect? Because we just, like I said, we just threw you out and said, go do this.
I was like, it's shooting. I'm in. I don't know. Like you just, like they gave us this long list and they said, bring all this stuff and show up. And I really had no idea what to expect. So that was part of the fun.
Yeah.
But when I got there, it was different than I guess I thought. I figured it would be a little more the type of instruction that you were referring to, a little more tactical, a little more, but it's very classic and it's very streamlined to the actual skill of the shooter and the American tradition of shooting and not having a ton of specialized gear, but just learning how to aim and shoot.
Yes.
Which was really like amazing and liberating because once you go through it and you learn how to do it, you have this feeling of like, okay, I just shot all weekend with iron sights. Like if I have a $200 deer rifle with iron sights, like I can hold my own.
Yeah.
That's an awesome feeling.
It was a really awesome feeling. And I think it was, for me, it was liberating. You're like, oh, all of this expensive glass and scopes and all this other stuff. That stuff's really cool, but I don't need it.
It's burdensome.
Yeah, and it can. I mean, I think that's one of the nice things is you back up and get the equipment out of your way.
Yeah.
Or you get out of the equipment's way one way or the other of looking at it. But so that's neat because I had a little bit different of an experience. And I know somebody else were joking, like, should we tell her that it's not going to be like dueling banjos or anything? Because when I went, this was years ago, they barely had their website together. And I didn't know if I was showing up to a white supremacist rally or if there was going to be Amway sales going on. I didn't know what it was. I was just like, all right, well, they promised to teach me how to shoot. And it's 2 days. How bad could it be? And I showed up. It was none of the more random thoughts that I had of what it might be.
Right.
And I thought, I don't know, it may have been a bigger thing back then than it is when you went, but they were very clear. Like, we are not a political organization. Because I thought like, oh, there's going to be political rah, 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 or whatever. And it was none of that. It was, I mean, it's definitely pro-America.
Yeah.
Very pro-America. But,
safe to say. Yeah.
But it was not, I had a very different view of what I was getting into. So I'm glad you didn't have all the cockamamie ideas that I had of like, oh my God, what kind of hillbilly nonsense am I going to get myself into?
You know, I didn't even think about it, but I guess if I'd have stopped, if I was so busy preparing, and I didn't really think about it, but if I had, I may have wondered, but I think I was expecting something a little more tactical, a little more geared up, a little more like hoorah.
Yeah.
And it was just very calm, collected, very organized, very methodical, and which really brought that systemized routine to your shooting, which is what I needed. So it was great.
Yeah. We all need that. So what was it like when you first started, you first got started, like the first day? Was it like, let's start here. How was the instruction? Because you're not expecting much from a $70 course.
Right. Exactly. But that's why I was blown away, because the instruction was really phenomenal. And I say that because like, it wasn't what they said. They did these visual instruction lessons where they would have a model kind of lay on the ground. I'm sure you're familiar because you're learning all different positions. You're learning to shoot from prone. You're learning to shoot from standing, from sitting, and with the GI sling. So there's a lot of positioning that really positioning is 80% of it, I would say, what they teach. And so they did a very strong visual model where they would have someone model the entire time they taught, and they would walk around the person. And it was really powerful. It just gave you that very good mental representation of what you needed to do physically with your body to shoot. And then you got to immediately go practice it. And again, and again, and again. And it was very effective.
So that was yours. And I think this is one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that kids can go too. And you had your husband and your kids there. So what was the instruction like for the kids?
It was really great. For me as a parent, I loved it because I think there was probably 25 people there that day or that whole weekend we shot. And so it was 20 hours of total actual either instruction or shooting time. And that's a lot of time. So the entire time there was either instruction going on or there was shooting going on. And with the number of instructors they had, it was a really low ratio. So practically most of the time there was an instructor working one-on-one with one of my children individually, which was awesome because I didn't have to be doing it.
You're like, I'm here for me, not you, stinker.
And I had someone working with me and my husband had someone helping him. And I really didn't interact with the kids except during breaks. They were learning how to work through malfunctions, jams, and all of their own personal little idiosyncrasies with a personalized instructor. And they were all very good. I can't say enough good things about it.
What?
For the price, it can't be beat.
Yeah, no kidding. Now somebody gave you a bum rifle. And I think so you had a bit of a equipment malfunction,
right?
Because some jerk might have given you a rifle without checking the front sight first. But so you had a wobbly front sight.
Right.
But I think that was good because you learn, especially if you show up not trying to chase the rifleman's score or the patch or any of that stuff, and you're just there focused on learning. You learn the equipment. So what was that like? What was the experience of? Damn it, Aaron! You gave me a bum rifle. What was the experience like of of just learning, like, because you went through it and you had to be a little frustrated at first.
Well,
because you're like, what is going on?
Well, yeah, an unnamed friend lent me a rifle with a loose front sight, which I was completely unaware of, which is part of the learning process. Why didn't I know that right away? I didn't know that. So the first day I shot with it, and, you know, the groups were just crazy. And I kept going back to the basics, saying, okay, this has got to improve if I go back to the basics. And then finally, right at the beginning of the second day, we identified the issue, and it was a relief. But also, I realized that it was good for me, because it taught me to go back to the basics and not to worry about exactly the gear and what's going on with it, but know exactly. So it kind of solidified that basic training in me a little deeper, because I had to work harder and harder to get it to get the grips a little bit tighter, although they were still really wacky because it was loose. And then it's also just part of the process is learning, you know, how to deal with your firearm and everything that might go wrong with it at any given time. So
yeah, I think that's helped. I think that's good.
Thank you.
I'm here to help. Apparently not. I think it's good too, because from what you did, people's first reaction is always to blame the gear, blame the weather, everything but themselves.
Right.
And what I loved about your story is you were like, no, it's got to be me. It couldn't possibly be something wrong with the rifle somebody gave me.
No, I'm sure this is a perfect rifle. So yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird occurrence. And it also, I think for both of us, the lesson of always check your gear when you're loaning it out to somebody and check it when somebody loans you gear. Check it when it's your own gear.
There was a roll of toilet paper in the bag.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a weird thing. There's a roll of toilet paper in like every bag. It's a weird obsession I have with toilet paper. I don't want to use leaves.
Never be too prepared.
Never. And it was aloe toilet paper too. So it was funny. I opened it up and I was just like, you never know. She may get there and need this. Here you go.
You may. You do have to go to porta potties. So
yes. So what was the history lessons like? Because were you expecting that? Because we didn't, like I said, we didn't warn you about anything.
Right. I didn't really, I knew that there was a shade of history woven into it, but didn't expect, it was really cool because it was like, you would just need a break from shooting. Your eyes need a break. Your body needs a break. You sit down in chairs, and it was actually really cold that weekend and very, very windy. So the conditions were rough, but we kind of bundled up in blankets. And then it was kind of like fireside time where they would just tell stories about different Revolutionary War heroes and their different types of valor in battle. And it was amazing for the kids. They loved it. And we learned a lot. And it was a great way to spend your break. So it was really just a great, really kind of bonding activity and fun way to learn a little bit more about marksmanship and the war and American history.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
So of course the real thing that everybody goes to Appleseed for is the shooting. So what did you feel like you really took a lot away from it?
Yes.
Because you've been doing a lot of shooting lately.
Yes, but it's different. And what was really impactful was that there's a system and you follow the system and you follow the routine, because I'm really bad about not following the routine when I shoot.
Yes, I think everybody is. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of forced on you. And at first it can feel a little stifling, maybe for someone like me who likes to just show up at the range and shoot and have fun and blow off steam or whatever. But in the end, it was really encouraging because you could see the progress you made so fast from having that routine. So you do your checks and balances, you do your checklist, and everything is according to the system, and your results are just a lot better.
Yeah. So was the shooting harder than you thought it was going to be? Because you talked about like you had to, it is a little, it's like anytime you've done a thing and then you learn new ways of doing it and it feels constricting at first. So I guess was it the instruction that was harder, or was it just the course of fire was more difficult than you thought it was going to be?
Well, okay. The timed element is definitely a challenge.
Yes.
And the shooting was harder. I mean, positionally, like prone comes pretty natural, I think. I mean, I'm going to say for most people, but, and I did okay standing, although most people were complaining about standing, but sitting was absolutely ridiculously hard.
Really?
Yeah.
I think everybody's a little bit different. Everybody has one that they don't get along with.
Yeah, that was for me. It was very hard to get the NPOA, the natural point of aim, from the sitting position. And I almost just barely got it right towards the end. But So I really struggled with that one. But yeah, so and with the time drills, it was more challenging than I expected to be, but that made it a whole lot more fun. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It is the time challenge, and then also changing magazines under time and doing everything. And you're like, oh my God, this is like juggling and spinning plates. And
yeah,
I feel like a seal in a circus. Yeah, it's pretty neat. What do you feel like was your biggest takeaway from it as a shooter? What was your biggest takeaway from it?
Definitely to have a routine and a system, and just to follow that. And that classic marksmanship, having that routine and system is actually much more liberating than it sounds in the beginning. Because I didn't really, I was like, yeah, I'll just figure this out. I can figure this out, you know?
Yeah. So I know exactly how that goes.
And it wasn't going so great. So that was my biggest takeaway, is that there's a lot of value in that, a lot of efficiency and accuracy that comes really quick when you get that system. So,
so this is all leading to something for you, as we alluded to in the beginning, like you're doing the long range stuff, and which actually tell us about that for just a second, because I've wanted to do this for a while, and you're actually getting a chance to go do it.
Yes.
What is it you're about to go do?
I'm very, very excited, and I have no idea why I'm going all the way to the extreme long range first. But that's kind of part of the fun of it. We're going to West Texas. In Rotan, Texas. There's a Rex Defense extreme long range training shoot. So you start at 1,000 yards, going up to 3,000 yards. And basically, I'm kind of headfirst into all the ballistics and the training there, that the prerequisite for the course right now, which is fascinating and exciting. But yeah, it's going to be really fun to see how that goes. Yeah,
it's been interesting watching you start that journey, because I think after I went to Appleseed, because before Appleseed, I wanted to get into the long range stuff, and I would still love to do it. I just don't have the time, and I also now have a much better understanding of the equipment costs and shenanigans that go into preparing to do stuff like that. So I just went, you know what? I don't have time for that. I have too many other hobbies as it is. One day I'll get around to it. So I'm a little jealous, a little more than a little jealous, because it's fun.
A few guys have told me that.
Yes. But yeah, I think it was interesting. We don't have to get into the specifics, but
I'm just crazy enough to do it.
It's a lot of equipment, though.
It is a lot of equipment.
You go to 1,000 and you start going past 1,000. It's a lot of equipment, a lot of specialized equipment too.
Right. We're trying to streamline the very basic bare bones of what you actually have to have. Again, kind of coming from that Appleseed mentality, where it's not completely all about the gear. I mean, gear is great, but
gear's a lot, though. Come on, it's the fun part. You were sharing pictures and with the rest of us, and we were like, oh, that's nice.
Well, yeah, I mean, you gotta have the rifle, you gotta have the gun,
and
the scope,
and
there you go.
We're gonna need some new bags.
Never mind. What did I say? Minimalist? I don't think so. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, it's hard to be minimalistic going out past 1,000 yards, or even getting to 1,000 yards. It can be a little tricky trying to do it on a minimalist setup.
It doesn't really happen on a shoestring budget, so to speak.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, that was one of the other things that kind of stopped me. I went, is that really where I want to put money right now? And at the time I was just like, no, I want to do some other stuff.
Well, we gave up our spouse Christmas presents for this. So that was our Christmas gift to each other.
That was
right.
So, yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So it's mutual agreement. And that's the way I spun it. So
this has been and it was fun talking to you earlier about this, because this has been your husband is along for the ride. Like he's having fun. Like what husband doesn't want to, oh yeah, turning money into smoke and noise. I'm down for that. This sounds like a good time. blowing things up.
Blowing things down the range.
But I mean, it's good because he's been a pretty good sport about this. And it was like, yeah, sure. This sounds like fun. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think at first it was like, what? But okay, that's cool, but sure. And so, we're along for the ride. He came to Appleseed, and I think at first he didn't know what to expect either, but kind of came out like, wow, I feel much more in control of the situation here with my rifle. And on that note, one of the coolest things about Appleseed, my 11-year-old daughter came out and said, because I'll take the kids to the range a lot. They've been familiar with firearms since they were young enough to know, and that's kind of part of our philosophy, is that you teach them the safety and the respect of the firearm immediately, so you never have to fear them sneaking and getting a firearm or whatever, and being intrigued with something that you just
don't
no
turn
forbidden
it into a taboo.
Fruit in our house. It is what it is. It'll kill you. It'll blow you up. Right. So she came out the last day and the kids all said, when can we come back? She said, I totally understand my gun now. Like, I know how to deal with a jam. I know how to deal with malfunction. I know how to aim and fire. And like all this was in my head. And she goes, when I go to the range now, I know what's up. Like, I got it.
Oh, so, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Really cool.
I'm glad to hear that, that she caught into it so well. I felt the same way after I left.
Me too.
So all of this shooting and everything else, including the long range, is part of a bigger picture, as we alluded to in the beginning. Like you're getting ready to start your own show and everything. And I know it's been fun to watch you go through the process of developing your show, because we talked about it a bunch. And you were like, well, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I was like, I know exactly how that goes. You're like, I want to do all these different things. And you're like, it could just be called The Random Show. And then I could talk about whatever I want. But so you've focused in, what is it that you're getting ready to launch soon? What is it you're going to be doing? Like, what's the thrust of your show? What's your show called? I have all sorts of questions.
It's called
today.
Farm Field and Firearms.
I like it. So
just guns, ground, and game. We're doing. It's my own personal journey documented into shooting sports, hunting, and small farms, kind of more family farms or smaller farms, ag, things like that. And I'm kind of just trying to get behind the curtain of, like we talked about, the traditions, kind of the stuff that's been passed down, especially when it comes to hunting. There's a really cool, like, kind of fresh hunting community burgeoning online, where it's much more, kind of with the millennials, they're sharing instead of keeping secrets. So it's a little easier to learn now. And I'm just investigating into that, sharing that, and it'll be fun to watch me go in as a novice to things like extreme. I'll just go right into extreme long range, like with the Navy SEALs. And I'm sure they're going to look at me like, what the heck are you doing here? But that's kind of the gist of the show, is just we're going to go in and find out, how's it done? Is it a secret? Can anybody do it? Can a layman do it? Can a novice do it? And have a lot of fun finding out.
So why the three things in particular? I mean, we're all preppers here, but and so they make sense. I mean, we're sort of preaching to the choir, but why those three things?
Well, the farm and the agriculture kind of goes back. I mean, I was raised in South Carolina. My grandfather had a 1-acre garden. They produced food for 4 or 5 families every year. And I feel like it's kind of a lost art. I think that, there's a lot going on in the farm to table movement, which is very notable. And then there's the eat wild part, where you're actually, harvesting wild food. This is for health reasons. This is for, reasons of, keeping animals ethically and kind of that whole thing. And then guns is, I'm just an absolute gun enthusiast. I can talk about guns all day long. I don't know why, if I have a weird rogue gene or something.
Well, I think you're in the right. I think you're our brand of wacky in that sense, and that, we're all, for the most part.
And they all kind of just flow within each other. I mean, if you shoot, a lot of people that shoot hunt, not everybody, but a lot of people that hunt really appreciate small farms and family farms and agriculture and healthy, sustainable food. So that's kind of how it all flows together.
It makes sense. And I know your point about that was at the same time when I was wrestling with trying to find what I found in Appleseed. I was having the same problem with finding somebody to teach hunting, because both of my grandfathers were gone, particularly the one that was actually a big hunter and kept a dozen bird dogs and like was a very serious hunter, but he was gone. And my dad was never, like, he was interested in it, but he'd never really gotten into it either. So we didn't have anybody to say, hey, this is what you need to go do. It was, the idea was like, well, I guess you get a hunting lease, and I guess you get some warm clothes and
make friends with a farmer.
And I guess we should go buy some guns or something. And, even without that, trying to, as I got much more into the prepper stuff, trying to understand hunting and stuff like this, it just wasn't anybody who would actually just take you out and teach you. Or even if you're like, I pay you money, I give you money.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I don't know you.
Or they give you the fake leads.
That was another,
I go hunt over here. You really should go there. It's great.
It's great. There are these things called snipes.
Yeah.
You're gonna love it. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be huge.
No, it's a loss to,
And I think,
when someone passes on with that information. And so the idea is to document. It's so easy to document now. So the idea is to get a lot of it documented and out there for whoever.
That's really cool. So what was the name? Tell us the name one more time.
Farm, Field, and Firearms.
Very cool. So are you going to do just a podcast, or are you going to do a podcast on YouTube, or what all is it going to
It's incorporate? A podcast, but there's a video element with YouTube. So a lot of times it will be video and kind of action. We'll follow, especially if we're doing shooting sports and hunting. We'll do stuff on YouTube for follow along there with video.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Okay. Website address one more time.
Farm, Field, and Firearms, all spelled out.com. Yes.
Very cool. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was fun to finally have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Gotten to watch, as a group, we've all watched your journey into this. It's been fun. Awesome. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Show notes, resources, and links from this episode can be found by going to intherabbithole.com/E290. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, just look in the description section below this video. And speaking of YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to do all that YouTube stuff. Throw us a like, subscribe, and slap that bell around because bananas are yellow. With that, we wrap up episode number 290 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.